The CEO laughed loud enough for the entire executive lobby to hear. "When was your last date?" she asked with a smirk, folding her arms as security guards and employees watched. The maintenance contractor standing in front of her didn't answer immediately. He looked around the marble lobby, then met her eyes. "Right now," he said calmly. "With you." The laughter stopped. Even the receptionist froze. For a second, it sounded like the boldest joke anyone had ever made inside Harrison Financial Group's headquarters in downtown Chicago. CEO Victoria Harrison's smile disappeared. "You've got confidence," she said coldly. "No," the man replied. "Just honesty." What happened over the next 4 months would expose hidden corporate records worth $83 million, trigger one of the largest internal fraud investigations the company had ever seen, and reveal that the quiet single father everyone ignored was the only person who had been telling the truth from the beginning. His name was Daniel Brooks, 39 years old, single father of an 11-year-old daughter named Emma. Every morning he drove an aging pickup truck with nearly 300,000 miles on it before arriving at Harrison Tower at 5:30. He wasn't an executive. He wasn't a lawyer. He repaired elevators, electrical systems, and emergency generators. To most employees, he was invisible. But Daniel had learned something years earlier. Invisible people hear everything. 3 years before that awkward conversation, Daniel had lost his wife to cancer. Medical bills erased nearly every dollar they had saved. Insurance covered only part of the treatments. The hospital eventually sent collections after him for over $200,000. He sold his home, his retirement account, his wife's jewelry, everything. The only thing he refused to lose was custody of Emma. She became the reason he accepted every overtime shift available. While executives celebrated million-dollar bonuses upstairs, Daniel spent nights repairing flooded basements and broken electrical rooms. He never complained. Emma often asked why he worked so much, so someday he would tell her, "You'll have choices I never did." Unknown to Daniel, someone had been watching him. Margaret Ellis, 72 years old, former corporate attorney, retired member of Harrison Financial's board. She frequently visited headquarters but rarely announced herself. Unlike most executives, Margaret spoke with janitors, receptionists, and maintenance crews. She believed character revealed itself through ordinary conversations. She noticed Daniel every week, always polite, always helping others, always refusing tips. Then came the annual Executive Appreciation Gala. Maintenance staff had been instructed to remain invisible unless something broke. Daniel was replacing damaged lighting fixtures when Victoria Harrison entered with investors. She noticed him standing nearby. "What are you doing over there?" she asked. "Working," she laughed. "You people never stop." Several executives joined her laughter. Then she asked the question, "When was your last date?" The room chuckled. Daniel's answer changed everything. "Right now. With you." People expected him to panic. Instead, he smiled politely. "I've never been on a date with someone who invited this many witnesses." A few employees laughed. Victoria did not. She ordered security to escort him out of the ballroom. Daniel quietly returned to work. He assumed the incident was over. It wasn't. The next morning, his supervisor informed him that his contract was being reviewed because executives had reported unprofessional conduct. Daniel accepted the news without argument. Jobs came and went. Emma mattered more. That afternoon, Margaret Ellis requested Daniel meet her in a small conference room. "I heard what happened," she said. "I'm sorry if I embarrassed the company." Margaret smiled. "I don't think you embarrassed the company." She leaned forward. "I think you embarrassed someone with too much power." Daniel didn't understand why a retired board member cared. Then Margaret asked an unexpected question. "Have you noticed anything unusual while working in this building?" Daniel hesitated. For months he had noticed confidential storage rooms being accessed after midnight. Documents disappeared. Entire filing cabinets had been replaced. Basement archive boxes were loaded into unmarked trucks. Maintenance workers weren't supposed to ask questions, but Daniel remembered every detail, every date, every room number, every security badge. He had even photographed damaged archive shelves before repairing them because maintenance reports required evidence. Margaret's expression changed. Can you show me those pictures? Daniel opened an old folder on his phone. The photographs included timestamps, security doors, missing document boxes, destroyed inventory labels. Margaret stared silently. This archive was never supposed to be moved. What was inside? She looked at him carefully. Original land acquisition records. Daniel frowned. Land? Harrison Financial owns thousands of acres purchased decades ago. Some deeds were disputed. Some lawsuits were never settled. She paused. If those documents disappeared, ownership worth tens of millions could disappear with them. Within 48 hours, Margaret contacted federal investigators and independent auditors, quietly, without informing the CEO. Auditors requested historical property records. Executives claimed the files had been destroyed years earlier in a flood. Daniel's maintenance reports proved the basement had never flooded, not once. The explanation collapsed immediately. Investigators requested security footage. Strangely, footage from 12 separate nights had vanished. Too convenient. Fortunately, Daniel remembered another maintenance request. He had repaired backup surveillance equipment months earlier. Unlike the main system, backup recordings were automatically stored off-site. No executive had realized they existed. When investigators recovered the files, everything changed. The videos showed senior executives entering archive rooms after midnight. Boxes were removed, labels were replaced, entire shelves emptied. Victoria Harrison personally appeared on 3 separate recordings. Then another discovery surfaced. Hidden inside forgotten legal correspondence was a settlement agreement dated 1998. The company had quietly agreed never to sell or transfer several properties without notifying hundreds of original landowners. If the agreement had remained hidden, a pending $83 million redevelopment project would have violated federal law. Investors could have sued, communities could have lost protected land. The corporation faced catastrophic liability. Victoria insisted she knew nothing. She blamed former executives. Then investigators compared electronic signatures, approval records, internal emails. Everything pointed toward current leadership. Daniel watched the news from his tiny apartment while Emma finished homework beside him. "Dad? Yeah? Are those your buildings?" He smiled. "I just fixed the lights." "You fixed more than lights?" A week later, Daniel received another phone call. His contract had been terminated. Official reason: budget reductions. Margaret laughed when she heard. "They're trying to silence a witness." Within days, she arranged legal representation for Daniel. Employment lawyers argued retaliation. Federal investigators added his termination to their growing case. Media outlets began asking questions. Why would a maintenance worker lose his job immediately after helping investigators? The story exploded online. People admired the quiet father who had accidentally uncovered corporate misconduct simply by paying attention. Emma read thousands of supportive comments. "You really are famous now." Daniel shook his head. "No. The truth is, months passed, board members resigned, shareholders demanded accountability. Independent investigators uncovered over 12,000 altered records spanning nearly 15 years. Financial analysts estimated losses approaching $200 million once lawsuits concluded. Victoria Harrison finally appeared before regulators, confident no longer. Her attorneys advised silence. She declined every question. One reporter shouted, "Did you fire Daniel Brooks because he embarrassed you?" She kept walking. The investigation lasted another year. Eventually, Harrison Financial agreed to one of the largest governance reforms in its history. Multiple executives were permanently barred from serving as officers of publicly traded companies. Shareholders recovered significant losses. Historic land records were restored. Communities retained ownership protections that had almost disappeared forever. Daniel expected life to return to normal. Instead, Margaret offered him something unexpected: a permanent position, Director of Facilities Integrity. His job wasn't simply repairing buildings anymore. It was protecting company records, reporting irregularities, and ensuring transparency across every property the corporation owned. The salary was more than 3 times what he had ever earned. He accepted on one condition: "I won't become someone people are afraid to speak to." Margaret smiled. That's exactly why you're the right person. Months later, Daniel attended another executive gathering. Same building, same marble floors, different leadership. Someone jokingly asked if he remembered the famous comment, "When was your last date?" Daniel laughed. "I remember." Another executive smiled. "So, was it really a date?" Daniel looked around the room. "No, it was a test." "A test. Some people reveal who they are when they have power." He paused. "Others reveal who they are when they're standing alone." Emma eventually visited the renovated headquarters. She proudly watched employees greet her father by name, not because he had become powerful, because he had become trusted. As they walked toward the elevator, she slipped her hand into his. "You know what Mom would have said?" "What?" "She would have said you won." Daniel looked at the polished lobby where everything had started. "No." He smiled softly. "We all won. Because the truth stayed standing. And sometimes the biggest corporate scandals aren't uncovered by detectives, billionaires, or famous attorneys. Sometimes they're uncovered by the person everyone believes is too ordinary to notice anything at all." The man fixing the lights turned out to be the only one who saw what was hiding in plain sight.